Hi, welcome back to Celebrating Culture. We're coming to you today from West End in New Orleans, and West End is known for its jazz. This is where Louis Armstrong wrote the song West End Blues. It has a great history with jazz, and I'm with David Hansen, and David is a great jazz musician.
Hey Charles, how are you?
Great, David. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
David, I understand you actually have a collection of jazz music and memorabilia that you have donated.
It's now at the Historic New Orleans Collection. I purchased a big band library that had 5 to 6 big band leaders, all of their music dating back to the 1890s.
That is on Royal Street, that collection,
Yes.
and close to there is the Opera House.
The Opera House, one of the hotbeds of early music in New Orleans.
David, the Opera House is a great place to start with our story on Nick LaRocca. He actually started as an electrician there, playing music on the side, and that's where he would hear opera at night and learn how to put that into his jazz music. So tell me the story about Nick's dad, 1876.
Okay, so if we go back in time, when Nick is a youth, 10, 11, 12 years old, he's picking up a cornet. That cornet belonged to his father. His father was a cobbler, made handmade shoes. And they had a shop in the 2000 block of Magazine Street. That's where Nick grew up. Nick started to play the cornet. And from what I understand, his dad took the cornet from him, put it on the ground and stomped on it.
On the cornet that he actually brought over from
so.
Sicily. His dad's making extra money playing music on the side from being a cobbler.
Well, he's got a strong belief and a strong feeling that musicians are bums. And you are going to be a doctor, is what Nick LaRocca was told. And so Nick, I'm an adolescent, I'm 10, 11, 12 years old. He went and found another cornet. The story might be that his mother helped him buy it. She kept it hidden from the dad. So they had an outhouse. From what I understand, there might have been a compartment for toilet paper or something built into the outhouse, but he hid the cornet in the outhouse and he would go and practice out there. And then he was running around town as well, looking to get hired by Papa Jack Laine.
Papa Jack Laine.
Yes.
Tell me about him.
Papa Jack Laine was a drummer, but he was also a band leader. And he was probably the most prominent band leader from the 1890s through the 1910s. He had a wagon. He lived over in the Marigny, just over on the other side of the French Quarter. He would drive his wagon over to Exchange Alley. Musicians would congregate there and hang out waiting for the band leaders to come by and offer them gigs to go and play. Papa Jack Laine would come by and say, I need trumpet, cornet, saxophone, violin at this address. He would organize all of the events.
And there's a fight coming to town. Nick LaRocca is in that wagon one day. George Schmidt has a painting in his gallery of Papa Jack Laine's wagon with Nick LaRocca playing trumpet on the back of the wagon.
Okay.
I'm here with someone who paints culture, the history of culture. George Schmidt has been on Julia Street since 1976, and his paintings reflect carnival and Mardi Gras and jazz. George, welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to see you.
So George, this painting with Nick LaRocca, I mean, this is a great piece when you walk in your store. What am I seeing here?
What you're looking at is an actual event that took place in December of 1915. There was a prize fight. There was a band playing on Canal Street to ballyhoo the prize fight because the tickets were on sale at the corner here at Canal and Royal. This fellow over here, Harry James, was here from Chicago for the prize fight. He heard this band playing, and then when they finished, he went up to Jack Laine, Papa Laine, who was on the drums. He says, man, I've never heard music like this before. I'd like to bring your band to Chicago. He says, I can't. I gotta be here for Mardi Gras. But talk to Nick on the cornet. So he went and talked to Nick, and Nick said, yeah, come hear my band tonight at the Haymarket Cafe. And so he went and heard them, hired the band. They went to Chicago, and 2 years later, in 1917, made the first jazz record in New York for Victor. That's why I call it the discovery of the first jazz band.
He records Tiger Rag.
Tiger Rag was probably the most popular record. Now, LaRocca is in Chicago at that man's club, and it's a late night club. They're playing their music, and there's a vaudevillian who jumps up on a table and says, oh boys, Jass that music. And LaRocca says, that's what we're gonna call it, Jass, the Jazz Band.
J-A-S-S.
J-A-S-S. Now the problem was, what LaRocca says, well, the kids were going around crossing the J out, so it became the Ass Band. So he had to respell it, because sometimes they spell it J-A-S-Z. Well, it finally ends up being J-A-Z-Z.
Z.
Now the thing is, it becomes so popular as a term that it completely supersedes jazz as a word in the dictionary.
I saw a clip in the Times-Picayune that they were upset in New Orleans because J-A-S-S was considered a vulgar word.
Absolutely.
Why is the jazz music, and therefore the jazz band? As well ask, why is the dime novel or the grease-dripping donut? All are manifestations of a low-streaking man's tastes that has not yet come out in civilization's wash. It behooves us to be last to accept this atrocity in polite society, and where it has crept in, we should make it a point of civic honor to suppress it. Its musical value is nil, and its possibilities of harm are great.
So we got a little bit of a problem. These guys are raucous. They're cutting up. They're having hit after hit. They have extremely successful hits over the next 6 years. Between September and November of 1917, Aeolian Records records them and changes the band name to Jazz. Victor Records says, we're going to record you and you can record your own original song. So they do Livery Stable Blues and Dixie Jazz Band One Step.
The Victor Company pays transportation, brings the Dixieland Band to its New York studios.
Okay, boys, get ready.
First selections, the Dixieland's own compositions become popular overnight and put a new word, jazz, into the nation's vocabulary. The band becomes a top-notch Broadway attraction. But when every small orchestra calls itself a jazz band, the Dixieland Band sinks into obscurity as the name jazz becomes synonymous with cheap music.
And now all of a sudden we've got 5 guys that are American citizens. They were all born in the US, immigrant backgrounds, and they've got a million-seller record.
They knew how to imitate animal sounds with their instruments.
Yes, you had automobiles, but you still had horse and buggy. You still had livery stables. While they were in New York, they even did a performance at the New York Zoo.
Now, the jazz era also coincides with World War I. They're sending gramophones with albums on it to the troops, the warming huts overseas. And right after that, though, Nick goes to Europe.
Yes, indeed. In 1919, he takes the entire band on board the Adriatic, and they sail over to Europe, and they perform in London, and they're a huge success. They perform at the Crystal Palace.
They perform for the Queen.
They do perform for the royal family. They end up leaving in 1919 back to New York City.
So they also play at the USO halls. There's a lot of letters that servicemen have written thanking them for playing.
Friends, the War Hospital Entertainment Association wishes to thank you sincerely for your efforts last evening in presenting your act for the boys at the Columbia-based hospital. I assure you your efforts were heartily appreciated by all, and we would like to have you again this coming Friday evening.
You went back to his hometown, I understand.
We did. I get a call out of the blue from this guy in Italy, and he says, we're doing a Nick LaRocca, Louis Armstrong tribute concert in Sala Peruta. That's the hometown to Jimmy's grandfather, or Nick LaRocca's father. They brought us over, and we did an outside performance in Partana in a castle, and it was absolutely stunning. And we've been back 3 times to Sicily.
There are a couple more busts like this around the world.
Yes, I think they had 3 made. There is one of these busts in Sala Peruta at the Nick LaRocca Cultural Arts Center. In Sala Peruta, we had the mayor, we had Jimmy LaRocca, myself, and a whole entourage of jazz aficionados that are trying to keep this history and music moving forward.
Besides the bust of Nick that's in Sala Peruta, this bust here is actually at the American Italian Cultural Center in New Orleans, which has an exhibit to Italians in music, including Nick and Louis Prima. And there is an historic marker to LaRocca, Prima, and Caso Matassa at the Jazz Museum in the Little Palermo area of the French Quarter. David, I really want to thank you for being on the show.
Charles.
And if someone wants to find you, what is your website?
You can go to ODJB.com. If they're interested in other things that I'm doing, NewOrleansJazz.com.
You can hear David playing at Houston's a lot of times. I go there not every night, but your band is there every night.
7 nights a week for over 17 years.
And stay tuned. We'll be right back with more Celebrating Culture.